Hey, welcome back. Part 2 of my story or my journey from non-denominational evangelicalism to Christian Universalism. I'm going to do my best to pick up where I left off, and I'm going to throw in a little extra bonus story. Years ago, I had a wild experience with who I believe was Michael the archangel. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but it was like a legit, wide-eyed, wide-awake, physical eyeball-seeing experience. It wasn't some like, did I really see that? No, there was times where I've thought about it since, like, will it be ever possible for me to doubt that experience? Because, you know, when people have spiritual things happen to them, it's just human nature to like doubt what happened, you know, later, because that was just too insane what just happened. And that's one of those and this was one of those experiences where like, no, you can't. It's kind of like, you know, if you were let's just say you're 20 years old and you get hit by a truck and you have full memory of the whole thing, and then you're 40 years old, you'd never lost, if you never physically were handicapped and lost memory, are you going to forget that kind of an event, or the therapy you had to go through to like relearn how to walk and everything? Like, no, you're not going to forget. Like, it's a legit event that happened. Well, that's the same thing as this. This was a like I said, wide-eyed, wide awake, legit event. Anyway, so stay tuned for that. I don't want this video to be super long. Also, I don't think I have the ability to make it super long because I'll be distracted at some point. I have 4 kids in the house and it is morning time, and they're not gonna sit still and be quiet for too long. Anyway, so I think I left off in the last video talking about I was a part of this African church for 3 years. It was Jesus Celebration Center. I don't know if, well, the odds of anyone watching this being familiar with that, unless you were there with me, you know, it's slim to none, because it was just a tiny little church in Egan/Burnsville, Minnesota. No, maybe it wasn't Egan this whole time. I'm trying to remember, because I know it was in a junior high school choir room for a little while, and then they eventually got their own building. I think that was actually in Burnsville, where they finally got their own building. I don't know, it was a long time ago. Anyway, so I was a part of this church for a long time, 3 years. My first 3 years of willful Christianity. Because remember, I got born again when I was 14 at a Benny Hinn crusade, and then never had any convictions. I never felt like changing my ways or, you know, living a certain Christian way or anything like that. And we were still unchurched. You know, my mom, like I said, watched Benny Hinn in the morning, but we never had a church or went to a church or did anything, you know, out of the ordinary for, you know, secular, typical, worldly household. So, but it was when I was 19, like I said, when I moved out of my mom's house, moved in with some friends and coworkers into basically a crack house. I call it a crack house, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't like what you typically think of when you think of a crack house. It was just, you know, moving in with some people that partied literally every single day and lots of drugs, and the house never didn't smell like weed. And like I said, I lived on the 4th floor, so you can imagine like the smoke in the house. My room was never not smoke filled, even when I wasn't smoking, because it was the 4th floor, and you know what happens to smoke. Anyway, I didn't live in that house for long. Actually, I was only there for about 3 months. It seemed like a long time, because you know when you're young, everything seems like forever. It seems like a huge long season. I was 19. I moved out of my mom's house. I had a really short-lived wild streak as a kid. Um, but yeah, so when I started getting convicted while I was living there, I attribute it to my mom praying for me really hard, because she knew as soon as I moved out of her house, and when I moved out, it was kind of like I snuck out. It was like I didn't tell anybody I was leaving. I just slowly, over the period of like a few weeks, like started taking things from my bedroom at home, and before you knew it, it was empty. You know, about 2/3 of the way through it, or halfway through it, my brothers are asking me like, "What are you doing?" And they kind of obviously figured it out. You know, my mom, um, I think, was kind of in denial. I don't remember her really talking about it or saying anything about it. Like she knew, I mean, I barely lived at home anyway because I was 19 and I had I think I had, if I remember right, I had 2 jobs at the time. Um, and when I wasn't working, I was just out hanging out with my friends. A lot of nights I would just be staying somewhere else, you know. Um, and so it's not like I was, you know, one day I was home, everything was cozy and great, and everybody saw me, and all of a sudden I disappeared. It wasn't like that. It was like, no, I was already kind of out, but my stuff just started slowly disappearing, um, over the period of a couple weeks, few weeks, month. Anyway, so I moved into that house, and you know, got the party life on, and then started getting convicted. Went to the Jesus Celebration Center, went through all that. Talked about that in the last video. Got drunk in the Holy Ghost, quit everything cold turkey. Just started praying in tongues, and spent my last couple or few weeks in that house in the attic, just praying, 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 and gotten a few really heated conversations with my friends, like trying to like talk them into doing what I was doing, because like they needed to experience what I was experiencing, and like it got like fierce, you know. And I ended up basically, you know, I knew I needed to get out of that environment, and I was trying to like invite my friends to come with me, be like, we got to get out of this, we got to get out of this city, out of this house, out of this place. We got to get into a more cleaner atmosphere, you know. And we were all kind of like in this together. Like we all couldn't, we all moved in together so we could afford a place together. So I'm like trying to talk him into like moving with me so we can all afford another place together. And the place we were in was just surrounded by drug dealers and drug addicts and partiers. And not only that, but it was like, I mean, like I talked about before, like the car that parked next to mine got shot up the night before, or the night I came home once. I don't remember. Yeah, it was 5 minutes before I got home. No, it was 5 minutes after I left. That's what it was. There was a car parked behind me with its headlights on around midnight. I don't remember why I remember seeing a car parked behind me with its lights on, because that was not abnormal. You're in the city, in St. Paul, in the middle of the night. It was, I mean, it wasn't like it was 3 in the morning. That would be a little bit more weird, because you know how everything's quiet at that time of day. Well, you know, a car just parked on the side of the road, with the headlights on. You know, everybody's parking on the street anyway. Well, anyway, so I left, and then I guess that minivan parked in front of me got riddled with bullets. And anyway, so, man, I am jumping around. So I ended up moving from West St. Paul to East St. Paul. My friends did not want to come with me. I found a little apartment. No, it was not an apartment. It was a duplex, side by side. You know, townhome, 1-car garage, 2-bed, 2-bath, 2-story. Actually, kind of a nicer place, and it was on the border of Woodbury. So like we wouldn't even, like if you had to call the cops, it's like you would not even see St. Paul cops. It'd be like Woodbury, and it was interesting how the border was Woodbury, St. Paul. So I felt like I was moving up, because you know Woodbury is a much nicer city. But anyway, so I had about, I'm not going to tell my whole story about living there. I am going to get to the point of this video, and I can just ramble. So I moved into this place. I lived there for about 6 months. While I was living there, I moved in there with a coworker a different coworker, somebody who I just met working at Circuit City, and this guy liked to party. He partied 6 to 7 days a week, and I kept telling him, dude, no more parties during the weeknights. There were like 2 cops that lived like 2, 3 doors down from us, like a state trooper and a local cop. I'm like, dude, you bringing all these high school kids over here. They're all getting drunk every night. Do you realize you're gonna end up in jail? Like, you're gonna be liable for supplying minors. I mean, he would have kegs. I'd come home from work late every night, so like late, like 11 o'clock at night. So like, I was never there to like supervise or manage or babysit or participate, much less. Like, when I would get home a lot of nights, I would obviously socialize because there's 50 people in my house. But we started getting into it. I'm like, dude, you can't be having people over on the weeknights. And he would keep doing it. So finally I told him one day, I'm like, dude, you're done, you're out. And not only that, he was a little late on rent too. I don't remember why. But so turns out I ended up having a solid 4 or 5 months in this house where I was literally just alone, which was perfect because I had just, recently gotten baptized in the Holy Ghost, and I had this private, like, closet space, my own house, with just me and God. I could turn on whatever music I wanted to turn on to, worship, you know, and just be in my own little cave for about 6 months. So that was pretty cool. And then I felt called to quit my job, plural. I quit Circuit City. No. I got fired from Circuit City because one day I got called into my manager's office. Corporate was on the phone. My manager was like not knowing what was going on, but for some reason corporate wanted to call me. They said that they asked me if I'd ever stolen anything. I'm like, what? No. And then they're like, are you sure you want to fess up about anything? Because you put on your application you've never stolen anything. I'm like, because I haven't. What's this all about? And then they brought up something from when I was a teenager when I did a gas drive off and got a ticket for it. I got caught and I had to pay the gas station back and then pay a ticket. That was like a few years prior. I forgot all about it. It was like stupid kid, you know, I was with my friends. Didn't have any money. We were at this gas station, filled up the car and took off like little hoodlums. Got caught stupidly. How do you get caught? Well, some car pulled out in front of us, just incidentally, not even on purpose, just blocked the exit to the gas station, and we had to sit there and wait. And the gas station attendant came out and wrote down our license plate number. Anyway, moving on. So they're like, okay, well, if you don't want to fess up, we're gonna have to put you on administrative leave, and we'll call you back and let you know our decision. Because they didn't tell me what happened until a few days later. My boss was like, what the heck? What's going on? I'm like, I literally have no idea, and I'm not lying. So then they got back to me, reminded me of my criminal record. I'm like, oh, nice. Come back to haunt me. Totally forgot about it. It wasn't even a criminal thing. It was I mean, yeah, it was a ticket. They wrote me a ticket, but, and I don't remember what the ticket was for, petty theft or something. But I was a teenager. I wasn't even an adult yet. Anyway, whatever. So I lost that job and I still worked at this other company. I was working at a mortgage company trying to become a loan officer. And I was a telemarketer. And I think I was doing that for quite a while. A couple of years. At least a couple of years. It was probably over 2 at least. But one day I felt like God was saying I was totally drunk. Like, I would go to work. So this was funny because I was working at this telemarketing job, trying to become a loan officer for this mortgage company. And, I was there for a while, and it's like you become kind of close with, depending on your occupation, like I became kind of close with all my coworkers there because we all worked in a small, room, and we all pretty much just shared our lives together. And my boss one day came up to me. He's like, I gotta tell you, like, he walked up to my little cubicle. He's like, he was Jewish, secular Jewish. Like, he was Jewish in blood only, like, not a religious Jew. But like, I mean, the dude looked like it. You take one look at him, like, you can, like, that dude's Jewish. It was kind of funny. And he had all the common, stereotypes of like a Jew. Like, it was funny, we didn't, not degrading, I'm not insulting any Jews or anything like that, but it was like, the guy was kind of like uptight and like, the stereotypes of Jews are like, I don't know, I'm not gonna get into all that. It was funny, he was cool. But he came up to me, he's like, what happened to you? Because I went from like drinking and getting high with all these people for so long to like quitting cold turkey, becoming a Christian, baptized in the Holy Ghost, and I'd be coming to work like plastered drunk, but not on anything. And I was just happy, and everybody could see this like aura of like light and peace on me that nobody could explain. They just were like, what is going on with you? You have this like, I can't explain it, this peace, something like light is coming out of it. Like, people would say weird things, and I was just sitting there smiling and just like, want to talk about it, So, and I would just talk to everybody, and all of a sudden, anyway, like I said, my boss came up to me. See me touching the camera. I had to pause the video for a second there. So now I lost my train of thought. So anyway, yeah, my boss came up to me. He's like, "What happened?" And like, he was like, really, like, he came up to me. What has changed in your life? What has happened? Like, I need to know what's going on. Like, he was, because he saw me go from like vulgar language, he knew all of us personally. Like, we would all drink together and party together and get high. And there were a few people in this company who were like serious coke heads. Like, I did not, that's one thing I never really got into. I mean, yeah, obviously I tried it a few times, but I never got into doing coke. But there were a few people that were like hard. It was a mortgage company. There were some ballers at this company, and they were, and coke, that was the drug, and then there, not only that, there was some like hardcore like gangsters like working at this company. It was kind of surprising because it's like everybody's wearing like suits, like everybody's like super ballin', nice car, $100,000 Mercedes and like mansions, and but then you got these, like, some of these guys, they're like super hardcore gangsters, but they're like rich gangsters doing coke, doing mortgages. Like, how do they? I never could understand like how these people functioned. Hold on one second. Yeah, like I said, I was gonna be getting interrupted. No, it's typical. It's kids. They want to be busy. Anyway, so he comes up to me. What changed? And so I turn in my little swivel chair, and I started telling him my experience and what changed. And and I was so plastered drunk in the ghost. I mean, like, if you haven't experienced this or don't know what I'm talking about, then don't sit here and be suspicious. Like, you have no idea. Like, this is not a made up emotional thing or conjured thing, or like this, like I said before in the last video, like, all this happened to me. It wasn't me like seeking out this thing or trying to seek the spotlight or anything. Like, I wasn't going out of my way to get this stuff. But when it was happening to me, I was accepting it, participating in it. Like, who wouldn't? That was the thing. Like, it was awesome. Anyway, so like, I would go to work like barely able to hold my head up some days, like smiling and just plastered drunk in the Holy Ghost, I guess you'd call it. But yeah, so all of a sudden he comes up, he asked me what changed, and I turn and I start talking to him, and this is where I can't remember, and I remember after, like, immediately after this experience, not being able to remember the experience. So I remember him coming up to me and asking me what changed, and he's standing there, and I'm sitting in my chair, and I start talking, telling him this story, And then all of a sudden, it was kind of like I opened my eyes and I realized like 15 people are gathered around. They all like in their little wheelchair, like office chairs with wheels, scooted up and were like circled around me. And I was talking and and it was like I came to and I realized I'd been talking for like 5 or 10 minutes. I don't know what I was talking about. It's like I wasn't there. And I had like, and when he came up to me at first, like these people were all not there. They were like off in their own little cubicles, in the other, like their office. Like, yeah, I had a couple people beside me in their cubicles, but like all these people were not around me when I started talking. And I don't remember what I said when I started talking. But I do remember listening to this though. I had a few months where I had gotten into conversation, of religion and Jesus and everything came up. It came up while I was working there, obviously when I was going through this transition of living like a hellion to getting baptized in the Holy Ghost and quitting everything cold turkey and now talking about Jesus constantly. I was happy and wanted to talk to everybody about Jesus, so that's what I was doing. Well, nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody gave me their time of day. We all knew each other personally, and they're all, you know, I started talking about Jesus and they just walk away, like it was like talking to a brick wall. So we never really, I never really got into it with anybody. But then this day, when my boss came up and asked me what changed, and then all of a sudden I started talking, and then it was like I blacked out. But it wasn't like I blacked out, obviously, because I was telling a story. But then, like I said, like 5-10 minutes later, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was somewhere in there. I like came to, and I was still talking, and I looked around and realized, like I had just concluded like whatever I was saying. It was the weirdest thing because I don't remember what I said, and I was like not cognitively or consciously present. I came to, and it was like all these people were sitting around me. There had to have been 15 people there, like just kind of like on the edge of their seat listening. You know what I think about now, like why didn't I ask any of those people after that, like what I said to them? Because I didn't remember what I said to them. I didn't tell anybody about this story. Anyway, so moving on. I think it was either later that day or I think it was later that day. I went up to my boss. I'm like, dude, sorry, man. And I had the biggest smile plastered on my face, and I don't know why, but I'm like, I'm being called into full-time ministry, and I gotta quit. I gotta put in my 2-week notice. And he's like, what? What? Why? No. What? Why? He couldn't understand it because I was doing good. Like I said, I was trying to become a loan officer. But like we were all basically kind of family. Like I had no reason to quit. He's like, okay, well I guess if you want to come back, you can. Anyway, so put in my notice, left, and then I'm in this townhouse by myself, just me and God. And then I realized, a couple weeks into it, I'm like, I should probably call my landlord and tell him I'm not going to be paying rent. So I don't have any money coming in. So called the landlord, told him, hey, I'll be out by the end of the month. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm not going to try and milk you. Lost my jobs. And yeah, so he's like, well, thanks for the heads up. I do appreciate it. So started looking for alternative places to live and found the neighbor of my mom's house around the block. Single guy, older guy, not older, but like older than me. Had a room available for rent. And turns out I learned months later, the Lord told him to prepare his house to let me move in with him. But I had asked him, like, hey, you want to rent a room out? And sweet, yeah, come on in. So moved into his house, and he was an on-fire Christian guy. He's the guy that knew all the churches and all the pastors and everybody around the Twin Cities area and beyond. Like, he knew everybody. The guy was always out going to the malls evangelizing, and so I basically kind of tailed him, and into the church world. But then, yeah, so I lived at his house for about, I think, two and a half years. And then, man, I'm like going way deeper into my story than the point of this video. Well, anyway, hey, I hope you're enjoying it. Anyway, so I lived there for 3 years. I'm gonna actually bounce over some things, and I'll get back into the story maybe in a later video. I'll go more in depth. Maybe I shouldn't. You know what? No. You want to stick around and watch, and you're not bored? Good. But why the heck not? I'll just tell the story now. This is my journey. It's maybe just gonna be longer than a part 2. Well, anyway, so I'm still gonna get to what I wanted to get to in this video. But
this was
oh, look at your nice brushed hair.
This was in my hair.
Oh my gosh, you have grass in your hair?
Yeah.
You must have been playing hard in the grass.
What?
You must have been playing hard in the grass. I'm gonna finish my video now. You can be out here if you want to, as long as you're nice and quiet. So, moving with this guy, and I didn't have a job. I was looking for work. And he started getting kind of like looking at me funny, like, hey, are you gonna find a job? You know, even though he only was gonna charge me like $200 a month for rent. It's like, you need to find a job. I'm like, God has not given me the peace to look for another job yet. And that's what I truly felt. Like, I'm like, I was thinking about finding a job, and there was this check, like, nope, door's closed. Nothing, you know, I'm not pointing in any direction. Or no, I'm actually jumping ahead. I moved into his house, and I was tailing him one day at the Burnsville Center and this mall, and we were evangelizing. You know, I was actually just following him around. He was evangelizing, and we went into one of these jewelry stores, and this guy owned a landscaping and lawn care company, or tree trimming and lawn care company, and one of his customers was a manager of this jewelry store. And I had to find a job, and he was like, hey, how's it going? You know, and she was super bubbly and talkative, and she knew my roommate because he cuts her lawn. And Hadassah, Daddy's got to do a video. So, yeah, I shouldn't pause this when I need to, because then I lose my train of thought. And for you, it's like there was no break in time. For me, it was like that was 5 minutes. Anyway, so anyway, yeah, Mark is kind of getting into the mode now, like, let me help you find a job. Well, he introduces me to this lady who was a customer of his. She's a manager of a jewelry store. And I mean, getting, you know, dressed professionally wasn't new to me, because like I said, I was working in mortgages before. So, but it was a whole different line of work. I mean, it was a jewelry store and mall. So anyway, she got me a job, went through an interview, got the job. Ended up working at Gordon's Jewelers for about a year, until I realized that the jewelry store just upstairs from the one I worked at was hiring and paid. Their starting pay was like $3 or $4 an hour more than I was making. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing? So I went up there and applied, got the job, came back down and told my manager, like, I didn't even give them a chance to compete. I told them what they offered or what they pay, and they're like, I don't blame you. No harm done here, no foul, no harm, no foul. You know, see you around. So I went upstairs and got a job at K Jewelers. And Hadassah, you can be here with me, but I don't want you to be distracting, okay?
Okay.
Worked there for about another year, got diamond certified. Anyway, after that, I got fired from that job because My boss was a PK. He was an atheist, and he was really, he didn't like me. Something about me always rubbed him wrong because I was always in a good mood. And like I said, he was a pastor's kid, and he was just kind of a bitter dude. And he didn't like that I was a Christian. And I didn't really talk about I talked about being a Christian and God and Jesus a couple times, but I knew he didn't like it, so I didn't bring it up much. But I knew that about me bugged him. And after a while, I think he just couldn't take it anymore. So he told our general manager that he didn't think my performance was good enough to keep me around for. So then he couldn't even fire me himself. He brought the general, like, regional manager in to bring me in the back room and be like, hey, so your performance, it's just not stacking up. You know, we're really, you know, we need better numbers out of this store. And it's like, and I knew the numbers of all the stores around. Like, my performance and our store's performance was actually like well above what all the other stores were doing. And it was just the stupidest thing. I knew this was just him trying to like shove me out. It was funny, like, because like a year or two later, I found out that guy he ended up like set up a big heist, stole a ton of money worth of jewelry, and he ended up getting caught like in Texas. This was a jewelry store in Minnesota. Anyway, so, and I heard that from a manager of a different jewelry store, same company, in the same mall, like, you know, Kay and Goodman's are the same company, all part of Sterling Jewelers. Well, one of the employees or managers, the manager that took over for him when he took off and disappeared, we got to talking, and like I knew them because I worked there for over a year. And yeah, she was like, hey, or you know, I'm like, what happened to? I was like, hey, what happened to this guy? And she's like, oh my gosh, you didn't know? And she told me all about it. Anyway, so moving on, I lost that job. Now I'm living at Mark's again with no job. And he's, again, like, when are you going to get a job? And I didn't have peace. I didn't want to just do something of my own, you know, ambitions. And sitting there for a good month, you know, just in my secret place, you know, my bedroom. I'd go to church, but I was basically broke. And he was wondering if I was going to be, because he knew rent was coming and I wasn't working. So he's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, when the Lord leads me. Yeah? Sorry for all these little pauses. I know you don't have to wait, but you know, we're half an hour in here. And I'm realizing I'm not the greatest storyteller, not the most organized storyteller. Because I wanted to say a few things in this video. Haven't gotten to them yet. We're over half an hour into it. But I'm just gonna keep going. If you're still here, if you're bored to tears, I'm sorry, but you know, you're the one that stuck around. Thanks. Thanks. I appreciate it. So anyway, I think what I'll do actually, no, I'm not gonna. I was thinking maybe I'll just end this here and then like record a part 3, but I'm gonna get into what I what I wanted to get into in this video, even if it takes an hour and a half, which it won't. I'm going to kind of, well, I'll just continue. How about that? And then I want to tell the angel story, but it's coming up because it's coming up real close. Like, well, here we go. So Mark, my roommate, was getting antsy about me not working, knowing that I was not going to be able to pay him rent soon, and I wasn't looking for a job. And told him I'm waiting on the Lord. Anyway, so he knows this gas station owner, and he brought me up there. He's like, hey, I know the owner of this gas station over here. Can I bring you up, introduce you, you know, for a potential job? And the funny thing about it was, like, I never wanted to work at a gas station. Like, I had sold mortgages, I sold jewelry. Now, selling jewelry wasn't very glorious of a job, and it was not very high paying. Mortgages had a lot more potential. I actually had contemplated becoming a licensed real estate agent, but then actually God gave me an ultimatum, or I was sitting there looking at job opportunities for, not job opportunities, like there were real estate agencies that would pay your way through getting educated and licensed if you wanted to go work for them. And that's when like God stopped me. This was back when I lived at the townhouse in my 6 months of quiet isolation with God. He gave me an ultimatum, like, this is the kind of the fork of the road, not ultimatum, but yeah, fork in the road. Like, follow me or follow your path. Like, where I want you to go, where I lead you, or you kind of go and do your thing, you know, go be a licensed realtor and go that route, make a bunch of money. And so I chose his path, at which time I actually like started dumping all my worldly possessions. And when I say worldly, I don't mean like all my stuff. I just mean like secular stuff, like huge CD collection of worldly music, like spiritual house cleaning kind of stuff, like stuff today I find like that was a little over the top, but and I wouldn't recommend that necessarily to anybody now. Like, that was a little bit of, I don't know, it was kind of religious, you know, a little zealous, and not necessary for like everybody. And you know how fundamentalists and some super religious zealots are, like, very like you know, I don't know, I can't think of the words, but you know what I'm talking about. You can't listen to secular music, and you know, it's like, anyway. So, and demons are everywhere. Demons are on everything, you know. Well, that was where I was at. That was just the season I was in. That was the stuff I was learning. The church was preaching and stuff like that. And honestly, you know, for me, that's where the Holy Spirit was guiding me. And it was for me in that season, you know. Cleaned everything out. Threw away a lot of stuff. Just straight in the trash can. Tons and tons of like CDs and worldly stuff. But anyway, rabbit trailed, lost my train of thought. Okay, going back to, he introduced me to the gas station owner. I felt the peace about it now. That's why I went with him. And met this guy. He was a Muslim from Syria. He'd Americanized, though. He'd lived here for 20 years. And took a liking to me, hired me on the spot, and I became a employee of a hole-in-the-wall little gas station. And soon kind of became, you know, like kind of a manager, I guess you could say. I mean, like, I didn't run everything. Like, the business owner did all the main things, but I did basically what a manager would do, you know, opening and closing and tracking and a lot of whatever, So I ended up working at this gas station for a couple of years, and while I was working there, started getting this. Well, I was early 20s and didn't really have a social life other than church. Didn't have. I was like, I want to start looking for a wife, you know, and I was really like feeling like I need to find me a companion, you know. So, and truthfully, I skipped over a lot here in the story. I'm bouncing back and forth, and I'm not sharing everything, or this video would be hours and hours and hours and hours long. But anyway, so got on the Christian Mingle, and this was 2 years into working at this gas station. Or no, maybe about a year. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Signed up for Christian Mingle. Anyway, oh yeah, back up a minute. This gas station guy, the owner of the gas station, and I'm trying not to name names because I don't know who's going to be watching this, and I don't need to, you know, bring anybody out into this that may not want to be mentioned. even though it was years ago, and I've pretty much no connection with any of these people anymore. But anyway, this guy, he had told me a few times he just like could see this, like he would stop. There was a couple times, like I remember, like happened a few times. He's like, we're sitting in the gas station behind the counter, and he would stop and look at me and be like, "What is it with you?" Like it was kind of like he was kind of like in awe. He's like, "I don't get it. You have this. There's this peace. Like I can see it and feel it. Like I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Something about you. You got this peace on you." And I just sat there and smiled. And I mean, I couldn't put it into words and explain it, And I would say like, well, it's Jesus, Anyway, so I just had to throw that in there because it would happen all the time. And it was just the aura of God with me, I guess. But so anyway, yeah, get on christianmingle.com, sign up, I think I signed up for a year thinking this is going to take a while. Paid for a whole year. It was like $130 and filled out my profile, put a profile picture. And my mindset was I'm not going to beat around the bush and like create a facade. I was going to be honest, and I was a very blunt, straightforward person about my religious and spiritual views and what I was hoping to get in a wife, who I was. Everything was just very straightforward. And because I'm thinking like, if I'm going to meet the right person, like either I'm going to scare them away, or they're going to like it, and it's like, and that's the person that I actually want, And then, so like a week into this, not even a week after I signed up, I'm scrolling profiles and I see this one. I hadn't gone on any dates or met anybody. I had a couple of quick little message back and forths with some people, a girl in another state, had a brief little conversation that amounted to nothing beyond one little chat. But then I saw this one profile. I'm like, wow, probably don't have a chance, but clicked on this profile picture. It said we were 100% match. And it didn't automatically, how like these websites, they'll match you up with people you are supposedly like matched well with. They match you well with. Well, she was not in with my matches. Like I had to just be randomly scrolling and find, oh, why is this 100% match not in my matches? Well, it turns out later it was not an active profile. It was not an active subscription. She wasn't actually active and on it. Well, that's when I learned if you have a profile on a dating website, once you are done with that, they keep your profile live just to populate the website or make the website look like it's more populated than it is. And you can like poke the person, send them messages, and thinking, it's getting there, but it's not. It's not getting to them. If it's not an active website, if it's not an active profile. But anyway, so she had encrypted kind of her AOL screen name. I say AOL screen name. This was back in 2008. And if you put your phone number, for any contact info, anything like that, they'll like delete it for you or shut your profile down. And anyway, she broke up the screen name in a way that like, if you weren't a complete idiot, you could figure it out. So I downloaded AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, and love you, have fun. And sent her an IM. Basically, all I said was, I've been waiting for you. That was it. And I'm thinking, either I'm going to sound like a complete creep, or she's going to think it's funny and reply. And whatever happens, happens. And nothing happened. until about a week later, because you can see on Instant Messenger like when someone's online or not. She was never online. All of a sudden one day, bing, or whatever the noise it made, it was online, and she got back to me. And then we got to talking a little bit, and then I invited her to a church service the next day. And I don't remember, I think I texted her. See, I didn't have internet at home, only had it at the gas station. So I was doing this on my laptop at the gas station. And hold on, kids are getting out of hand. One sec. Have I mentioned I'm not a great storyteller? I'm bouncing around. So anyway, I'm going into the story about how I met my wife now. Okay, well, yeah, so I invited her to church service the next day. Didn't have internet. I just sent my number. Well, she did the same thing. She sent her number to me, and I closed my laptop, and I didn't get it. Well, I'd happen to go back to the gas station the next day to get something, opened up the laptop, and I realized, oh, she sent me her number. She never called me or texted me. And then I ended up calling her, left a voicemail, and then she got back to me. We did end up going to church. Long story short, well, you know what? I'm going to cut that off. We're going to save that for another video. I'm going to go back to Mark's house. So while I was living at Mark's house, he had, like I said, Mark was very on fire and outgoing, you know, Jesus freak. And like, I mean, he would evangelize to telemarketers. Telemarketers would get solicited by him. And so like this one guy calls from the RNC asking for money because Mark occasionally donated to the Republican Party. And Mark gets to talking, and Mark gets a download from God about this guy he's talking to. And then Mark stops the telemarketer from talking, and he's like, hey, so I need you to talk to my roommate for a second while I pray about this. So he hands me the phone. He's like, hey, say hi to this guy. Talk to him for a second. I'm like, I grab the phone. I'm like, hello? Hey. You know, I'm just like, so basically, the guy's on hold while Mark prays for a second, and I'm sitting here on the phone with this telemarketer, not really talking, not knowing what's going on. Mark takes the phone back. They get to talking. They talk for like a half an hour. Mark tells them like these pretty detailed things about his past, and he knows, like, so this telemarketer, they get to talking. I don't know the extent of what they talked about or how their relationship really formed, but they got to talking, and if I remember right, they were talking for a while, months. They established a phone relationship. Well, we lived in Minnesota. This guy lived out in, I think, DC. And anyway, one day this guy moves. He just throws what can fit in his little Pontiac car and drives out and moves in with us. And a lot of funny things happen with this, or weird things, I should say, like spiritual things. So like the night he got to our house, you know, knocks on the door, we open it up, he comes in, says hi. He walked in, and it was like, you know, when someone like who's a heavy smoker like walks in your house, basically, like, even if they're not smoking at your door, they still smell like they're in a cloud of smoke, cigarette smoke. Well, that was what, when this guy walked in, that was what followed this guy in. He was a non-smoker. He had smoked in years past, but it had been a long time since he quit. He didn't actually smell like smoke, but we thought he did, because that's what, and I think it was a spiritual presence that followed him in. Anyway, so he comes in, sits down, we meet, you know, say hi, whatever. I personally, in passing, I don't know if I was going to work or what, but that was not really a formal meeting for me at that time when he first got there. But I remember within the first day or two or three of him being there, I came home from work late one night. I think it was like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. I came home from work super tired, wanted to go to bed. So I walk in the front door of the house, through the living room where Mark and this other guy are sitting, walk to my bedroom, getting ready to like plop down in bed. Then I'm thinking like, man, it would be rude. You know, this guy just moved in. We haven't really been officially acquainted. I just walked past him, didn't really say anything, you know, so I'm like, all right, I'll go sit out there and chat for a little bit. So I go out there, sit down. He's sitting on the couch. Mark's sitting on this other couch. I'm sitting in a chair. We're talking. We start, you know, small talking and chatting about where he's from and everything. And I say something, and I won't get into what. It's for a different time. But I said something because he worked in the White House. And I brought something up, some conspiracy theory thing that my mom said years prior. You know, it was something, I don't know how commonly known about this was, but it was like not top secret information, like the name of this experiment that the government did, you know, like 50 years prior or something. But I brought it up. I'm like, what do you know about this? Ha ha ha, jokingly. And all of a sudden he like convulses. And this otherworldly voice comes out of him, and he contorts his head back, almost throws his head through the glass window behind him, and like sits up and like talks in this otherworldly, thunderous voice. Like the floor almost shook. It felt like it was shaking. It wasn't him talking. And he's like, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into or what you're talking about. I don't remember exactly what he said. Then I look over at Mark, and Mark looks at me, and we're just wide-eyed, like, we need to pray. And then and then all of a sudden, this guy, he snaps out of it, and he's like, he looks at us. Now he's white as a ghost. He's like, what was that? You know, like, what just happened? And we all knew it wasn't him. Something had, like, some spiritual thing, demon, whatever you want to call it, talked through him. So, like, Mark and I start praying, and now at this time, I think I was still 19. I was maybe 6 months into, this was probably 6 months past the time that so like I said, did I mention I'm not a great storyteller? I'm jumping around. Well, so this was long before the whole meeting my wife on Christian Mingle thing. So I backed up a little bit. But I had it's been about 6 months since I got baptized in the Holy Ghost. No. Not 6 months. Going on a year, because I got baptized in the Holy Ghost, and I still lived in that hellhole in St. Paul. Then moved to this other place in St. Paul, lived there for 6 months, and then moved into Mark's. And then it had been probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 months in living at Mark's. So it was almost a year since I've been baptized in the Holy Ghost and had an active participation in Christianity. So I was still basically a baby in Christianity. But being with Mark in just this few months, I had experienced a lot of, like, I don't know if I want to call them exorcisms, but very charismatic, you know, Christian stuff. You know, we'd go to church services and people would be falling all over the place, and, you know, a lot of hooting and hollering and speaking in tongues, and like people going and getting demons cast out of them, and like a lot of crazy stuff. You know, there was this one girl, she's probably, I don't know, 10 to 14 years old, I don't remember. And she was just acting like a friggin' animal. And, and there was these pastors all praying over, like, come out in the name of Jesus, like, and doing their stuff, and by the end of it, she was like free of it and everything. So I'd seen a lot of spiritual stuff, but I was still brand new. I was never like performing anything. And I didn't know how or what to do for any of this kind of stuff. All of a sudden, so me and Mark are sitting there, started praying. I didn't know what to pray or what to say or what to do in this scenario. This guy, who's our new roommate, is sitting on the couch, not knowing what to do. He asks for a Bible, and we give him one. And like he was a Christian, but he had no. Exposure to charismatic Christianity at all. He didn't even know it existed. Like, he came from a very dry, Christianity. He was Messianic, but like so he was a Jew in blood, and then became a Christian at some point in his life. But it was very, you know, I don't remember what if it was a denomination or what it was, but it was very non-rowdy. There was nothing, no hand raising, no tongue speaking, no miracles. You know, very dry Christian flavor. So he had no grid for what all was going on here. You know, I stand up, and it was going on midnight now, and I start pacing back and forth, and I was praying in tongues, just you know, going and going and going and going, and I didn't stop because I knew. So I was like, God, I don't know what to do. You do, so do it through me, and I'm just gonna sit here and participate. I'll be the vessel. So I would so from then till about 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, something like that, basically till dawn, I was just pacing back and forth, praying in tongues. Periodically, like this guy was like on the couch 1 minute, the next minute he's on the floor face down, and then you know, like I would get a word like a riddle or some kind of a rhyme, and I would say it, and like demons would fly out of the guy. And Mark, he was just kind of sitting in his chair, being quiet the whole time, praying, but quiet. And I was up pacing back and forth, you know, like a soldier speaking in tongues. And Mark sitting there quietly. And every time like I would get this riddle and like something about, you know, freedom and demons coming out and commanding whatever to happen, and Mark would be like, whoa, so many times he almost got knocked off his chair, like a wind flew through the house. Windows were closed. A wind would like blow through the house, almost knocking Mark off his chair. And Mark would say it every time it happened, like another demon left, got kicked out, got evicted, you know. And I didn't see any of these demons leaving. Mark kept getting darn near knocked out, like getting knocked out of his chair by these demons like leaving. The guy this was happening to, and I'm not going to name names, he, you know, an hour or 2 or 3 into it, I don't remember, he was convulsing. I don't think he was seizing, but he was like throwing up. Mark ran and grabbed him a bucket, and he was like throwing up, puking black, like tar-like substance, and like he was pretty scared. He didn't know what was going on. I didn't really know what was going on. I knew it was like gonna be fine, and I knew we were in control, but I didn't know what to do, so I was just praying in tongues the whole time. And we'd keep going. I'd keep getting these rhymes and riddles and command stuff, but most of it, like I would only say what I heard. But so for the majority of the time, I was just speaking in tongues, like a soldier, just pacing back and forth, you know, and taking kind of like the authority of the room type of thing. And like I said, I'm less than a year into being a Christian. I'm 19, and like I was assuming Mark would be a little bit more authoritative in this because he's an older guy. He's got way more experience in all this stuff. But he was just sitting there in his chair, just praying in his head, quietly, watching, observing, not really saying a whole lot for hours, like all night long. And then finally I got this rhyme, like right before the sun came up, something about the sun, when the sun rises and the birds chirp and blah, 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 you know, like it'll be your end or something. I don't remember what it was. But then all of a sudden, like I glanced out the window, and I noticed like the dawn is cracking, and I started hearing birds chirping, you know, as the sun's coming up. And all of a sudden, like there was this kind of, no. Right before the peace hit the room, because it was still a very chaotic feeling environment, I'm like going back and forth, storming, you know, back and forth, speaking in tongues and still going. And I look over and I'm like, I stopped in my tracks. And like on the other side of the living room, head almost basically touching the ceiling, is this angel who I just knew in my knowing this was Michael the archangel. I don't know how I knew it, but like I just knew. I saw clear as day open eyes, not some mystical spiritual thing. I wasn't hallucinating. It was right there. This guy was on the floor, face down, like he just got his butt whooped for 6 hours straight. And I saw this angel standing there, smiling like he had like a 12-inch wide grin. His teeth were like he was just made out of light. The body of this thing, the angel, it was not defined, like there was no detail, like you can see all the little details on a person or thing. It was literally like it was made out of light. It was translucent, but I couldn't see all the way through him to the other side. Like I couldn't see the wall behind him. But he was just made out of pure light. Like a golden bright, pure light. And it's hard to explain because it didn't like illuminate the whole room to the point where you couldn't see anything, but it was made out of light. It was like if light stayed in its place. It's kind of like if you had this water bottle here and there was no plastic around it, but the water stayed there. Now imagine if that was light. Like if you have a light bulb and you get rid of the bulb that's like got the light in it, and now it's just this like ball of light. Like, yeah, there's some illumination radiating off it, but it's just light. But I could see clearly defined the smile. I could see the teeth. They were the whitest white you could ever possibly, can't even imagine it. There's no way you can even describe how white his teeth were, and he was smiling like. And then my eyes moved down to look at the floor, and no longer could I see the guy laying on the floor. I saw at the feet of this angel it was a demon that was kind of like, I understood it to be the strong man. Like all these demons were leaving this whole night, demons flying out, like getting evicted, like getting kicked out. But then there was this was not this was more of a spiritual vision. Like I could see the angel clear as day, but now now it was like the floor was gone and there was like this cliff appeared, like a Grand Canyon kind of cliff. I could see, and like this demon was kind of like this massive, hulkish bodybuilder looking, dark skinned, demonic figure, like almost kind of human in shape and form, but not human. But it was a demon. I just knew it was a demon. It was the head honcho of the demons that were hanging out with this guy. And he was hanging by his fingernails on this cliff edge, beat, bloodied, bruised. I could just had this knowing he had nothing left, no strength left. He just would not let go. And Michael was standing over him and smiling, and I saw this. I use the term radioactive. I don't even know if that's the right word. There's no way to describe it. But the angel was urinating on the head of this demon. And it was like this, the brightest, radioactivist looking pee, urine. You know, like the green, there's no comparison to anything on earth to this color green. It was the wildest looking thing. And I'm looking, and I'm just like straight faced. This whole experience was happening to me. I had no grid for any of this. I didn't know this kind of stuff happened. I didn't know this kind of stuff existed. I was just observing. It's like I flick the TV on and I'm just watching. You know, Michael's like making eye contact with me, smiling like with a smile 10 times bigger than any human being. Whitest teeth, you can't even describe how white. The body, like I could see the definition and the detail of the teeth, but everything else of this angel was just light. Like it was a silhouette of pure light. And then there was this stream of urine that was like the most radioactive, bright, neon green that you can't even put into words to describe. But he was peeing on the head of this demon who was hanging on the cliff edge. And I'm like, and then I heard just like something, I had a knowing to say, Michael, bring this demon to the pit of hell or something, or get this demon out of here. And all of a sudden, this wind came through the wall into the house, It was another angel, undefined. I couldn't really see it. Just another messenger angel, whatever. And then I looked back over, because I looked at the wall, the wind came through the wall, I'm like, what the heck? And then I looked back over, there's these two angels, they got this demon, they put him up on like a stretcher type of thing, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, out of the room, they were gone like that. Through the wall, gone. And all of a sudden, birds started chirping, the sun was cracking, and it was like the room, this peace came down over the room. You could literally feel it in your bones, the peace. You could feel it in every fiber of your being. There was this tangible feeling. You could like, there's no way to describe it. It wasn't a hallucination. All of us felt it, and it was over. That was the end of it. The guy was still laying on the floor, and it was like he just got his butt whooped. It's like, and he started like peeling himself up off the floor slowly, and like, I looked at Mark, and we're like, that was pretty wild. I think it's over, you know? So yeah, that was my angel experience. And funny thing is, like, sometime within the next week, we had a youth group meeting at my pastor's house. So I pulled my pastor aside, and I tell him the story, and he just looked at me so weird. If I remember right, he really didn't say anything to me. I think he thought I was making it up to try to like maybe be cool or something. I don't know, but he didn't say anything. He just was like, okay. And then we went back to what we were doing, in the youth meeting, and that was the end of that. No further conversation about it at all. I don't know. I always felt like that guy, that pastor, never really liked me. There was like just this weird vibe. Like he just always kind of didn't really like me for some reason. Like everybody else in the church loved me. I mean, I'm not anything special, but I mean, but you know what I mean? Like when there's just somebody you can just feel like there's just this weirdness. Certain people like that you're in relationship with, they just like, you can sense that you rub them the wrong way somehow, and I don't know what I ever did to do that, to make him feel that way. Maybe I was obnoxious or something. I don't know, but I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. But anyway, I was kind of feeling hopeful that he would have something to say to me about that experience, because I had never experienced anything like that. I didn't know what to do with all that. And, so that was kind of an odd, I don't know. You'd expect the pastor of the church to be able to have some input. Even if they don't have a grid for it or know what to say, they'd say something. Anyway, he didn't say nothing. So anyway, so there's the angel experience. I have a lot of other crazy experiences too, but we're not going to get into all of them today. This video's gone an hour and 8 minutes. So what do I think? I'm going to pause the story here. This is a long video. If you're still around, man, thanks. By now, I don't even have to tell you to hit like or subscribe, because you've probably done that organically. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions or feel like saying something. Anyway, so what I think about what I thought before I was a Christian Universalist. See, I'm not going to get too deep into it now because the video is super long, but I am going to say something. A lot of the Christian Universalists, or people that, since I've transitioned, I've noticed people go just straight off the deep end, throw the baby out with the bathwater, leave Jesus completely behind and go straight into New Age. A lot of these people, I think maybe were just hurt by the church. I don't know, but I was never really hurt by the church. I mean, there were some things that were like not very nice, but I was never really like completely offended or hurt by the church or anybody in it. You know, little things happen on individual levels here and there, but nothing ever really groundbreaking or catastrophic. And I know other people have stories of how the church completely let them down or injured them in some way, or maybe some corruption or some bad actor really hurt them in some way. But nothing really like that ever happened to me. When I'd moved on to Christian Universalism, and I didn't jump into Christian Universalism. It was more of an easing into it because I didn't have a grid for it. I didn't have a knowing for it. I had basic, and I didn't know that I was a Christian Universalist for a while, a long while actually, until I really started solidifying my beliefs and understanding by reading and listening to a lot of different stuff to help me, define what I believe based on the perspective that I have now of the scriptures and reality. But so anyway, my point here is like all those experiences, the angel experiences that I had, the miracle experiences, like when I went to Africa and I saw like a couple chairs down from me, like somebody's leg, his leg was like 6 inches shorter than the other one. That might be an exaggeration. It was probably like 4. But like, pastor comes up in the middle of this service of like 11,000 people. He picks his legs up because he knew he was like, everybody knew this guy. Like when he would walk, it was everybody, like this guy was obviously like one leg was like way shorter than the other. He was pretty much a cripple that could walk. It's like the pastor comes up and starts praying for him, and it's just this atmosphere of worship and prayer, and thousands and thousands. Like this was a mega church in Africa, in Kenya, and Mombasa, Kenya to be exact. Jesus Celebration Center. This leg, I'm sitting here watching, and I'm fully all for it. I'm in it, and I'm watching, and this leg's like grows out, like over the period of like, it couldn't have been more than a minute. And the guy stands up and he's completely like straight. I mean, there was no reason for these guys to put on a performance. You know what I mean? Like, this is life for them. They don't have a medical industry over there or a pharmaceutical industry over there like we have here, or at least they didn't when I was there. Like, they rely on witch doctors in the church. It's like those are the doctors you get to choose from. Well, and like people are getting healed of all kinds of stuff all the time, and I was seeing it firsthand. I never had a reason to be skeptical because I literally saw it all firsthand. So, I mean, going from non-denominational, charismatic, evangelical to Christian Universalist, I can't toss the baby out with the bathwater because I've seen too much. And so it's like, yeah, you can have one. So it's like, I still have a Christocentric. I don't know if I have a Trinitarian view of God and Holy Spirit, Jesus. Like, I think the whole Trinity, I think that's too small and doesn't really grasp, like there's no amount of explanation that you could go into to define God and his essence and his person or persons, whatever. I think so. I don't argue with it. I don't take a stance on it, and I just stay out of it. I won't get in the conversation like, God is one, or God is Trinity, or God is multiple. I don't get into all that because it's vanity. It's complete and utter vanity. And it's not because I don't have a stance or something like that. It's like, it's just man-made and man-limited conversation. It's just, I don't have any interest in getting into that. But like, as far as like Jesus being the center of all that is important in reality and creation and in life, that's still the main thing. Jesus is the well, he's the Christ, so he is basically all of creation and all that was not created. Anyway, I'm okay. Yeah, we're not going into that right now. So there's my story, continued with an added little couple bonuses, angel experience. Yeah. If you're still around this far into it, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Throw a comment down below to give me your thoughts. Hope I didn't bore you too much to death, but part 3, I will go a little bit further into my how I met my wife and the insane, wild, like spiritual, like miraculous things that happened in that event or series of events, like just weird things, like things that if you were an outsider or a non-Christian or somebody who didn't believe in miracles and this kind of like charismatic type stuff, you'd be like, oh, wow, like that can't possibly, like, coincidence, that's too much, you know, like, so there's a lot of stuff. But anyway, yeah. So that's part 2 of my journey from non-denominational evangelical to Christian Universalist. Stay tuned, hit subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when I put another video out. And yeah, drop a like. Thanks again for watching. Have a good one. Taste and see that the Lord is good.